Donald Trump's cognitive decline couldn't be more obvious. It doesn't matter how much the mainstream media deflects from talking about it. Donald Trump shows it to us every single day. And he did again today, when he quite literally had to be saved by his handlers, have his hand held to deliver a message that is kind of exposed a crime Donald Trump has accused Democrats of. It is a complete mess that we are going to get into. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button, because it goes a long way in supporting our work. Now, before we can get into the event today in which Donald Trump had to be explained to, had to have his hand held, and had to be saved by his handlers, I want to start with a very important and detailed call out of the failure to address Donald Trump's cognitive decline by Lawrence O'Donnell right here.
Donald Trump has become harder to get on Sunday morning, but the desperation remains and I guess deepens. And so yesterday morning, CNN presented a so-called interview with CNN that they can't even prove was Donald Trump. They called it breaking news. They called it, quote, an exclusive new interview with President Trump. That's what they called it. Before the interviewer said this.
The president answered my questions on text about his hopes for this nascent deal.
What? You gave him the questions in writing? So now, instead of letting Trump hide in a phone call, where we can at least know that it's him talking, Donald Trump gets to hide behind the black screen of texting? We actually have no idea who texted the replies in that so-called interview. CNN is unable to prove that Donald Trump was actually doing that texting. CNN has not revealed how long it took to get a reply to each of the 5 written questions that apparently got replies from someone who texted those replies, or someone who told Donald Trump what to text in those replies, or maybe it was from Donald Trump. The first question was, what happens if Hamas insists on staying in power in Gaza, to which the text reply, and we don't know how long this took, and we don't know who did it. The text reply says, complete obliteration. The final slow pitch softball question was, how do you think the government shutdown is going to end? That question got the empty answer it deserved. Someone texted this reply as an answer to that question of how the shutdown is going to end. Good, we are winning and cutting costs, big time, exclamation point. The interviewer then said, I asked a few other questions on text, still waiting for a response on those, Mr. President. Okay, what were those questions? Exactly which questions did Donald Trump refuse to answer? What could be more relevant in reporting an exchange that is supposed to be with the President of the United States than including the questions he refused to answer? We have no idea. Any questions about Jeffrey Epstein or his sex trafficking friend, Ghislaine Maxwell? Any questions about Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator, Ghislaine Maxwell? We don't know. We have no idea. We have no idea what the other questions were that Donald Trump refused to answer, or whoever was on the other end of that phone refused to answer. When the history of Donald Trump's mental decline is written, it will no doubt include that so-called interview yesterday as a turning point in Donald Trump's White House dealing with the challenge of Donald Trump trying to answer questions during this period of obvious mental decline for Donald Trump.
I talked about this today on Piers Morgan in a clip that I'm going to check out with y'all later in this video, so please do stick around for that. But the fact that Donald Trump has to do a text interview, and of course he's not actually sending the text messages, should be the #1 story being covered by the media right now. I understand when a president or an elected official texts a journalist or calls them short. But making that your full interview so Stephen Miller and Russ Vought can write the talking points for you is absolute insanity. And we saw it again today when Donald Trump had to have his hand held by Marco Rubio to deliver some news that he's clearly not clued in on and will begin taking credit for soon. We have to debunk it now. It's a lot to get into, but let's start with this article. Rubio slips Trump note telling him to announce peace deal on Truth Social. Secretary of State Marco Rubio handed Donald Trump a note on Wednesday telling him that a Middle East peace deal was very close and was awaiting Trump's approval for a Truth Social post. As Trump spoke to reporters, Rubio walked up to the president, whispered in his ear, and handed him a note, which was captured by the AP chief photographer. Very close. We need you to approve a Truth Social post soon so you can announce the deal first, the note read, and we can see that shown in this clip from CNN.
Breaking news in our world lead. You're watching the moment President Trump was handed a piece of paper during a White House event just moments ago. It was a letter from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The president then summoned Rubio back to him and delivered this news on the Israel-Gaza ceasefire talks happening in Egypt right now.
Departments to find the criminal conspiracy.
Okay. I was just given a note by the Secretary of State saying that we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly.
After being handed the note, Trump told reporters, I was just given a note by Secretary of State Marco Rubio saying we're very close to a deal in the Middle East, and they're going to need me pretty quickly. Just over an hour later, Trump published a Truth Social post announcing that Israel and Hamas have both signed off on the first phase of our peace deal. Earlier on Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt announced that Trump was considering going to the Middle East shortly after his routine annual medical checkup at Walter Reed Medical Center. Trump today also needed his handlers to explain habeas corpus to him.
Given any more thought to possibly suspending habeas corpus to not only deal with these insurrectionists across the nation, but also to continue rapidly deporting illegal aliens?
Yeah, suspending who?
Habeas corpus. So.
Oh. I don't know. I'd rather leave that to Christie. What do you think?
So those two clips are very important to me. The first is pretty obvious. Donald Trump doesn't know what's happening within his own administration. The second, even more obvious, Trump doesn't know what habeas corpus is. But let's talk about the Rubio clip. You might be saying, Jack, Rubio handed him a note. Who cares? He whispered in his ear. Who cares? No. Let's unpack this. Donald Trump has been talking nonstop about the wars he's ended. And he's about to do the same if there is a peace deal in the Middle East. But it's clear that Donald Trump doesn't know what's going on. The note was pretty clear. A deal is close. We're going to need you to approve a tweet for Truth Social soon. And then Donald Trump needed Rubio to come over and explain a little bit more before he could make the announcement. Why? Because Donald Trump isn't clued in. He doesn't understand. He's not doing the negotiating. He's not even taking part. They're probably keeping it from within his grasp so he doesn't fuck it up. Donald Trump is not at the head of the ship. Donald Trump isn't steering. Donald Trump isn't telling people what to do. Donald Trump is posting. He's making playlists. He's screwing with the Rose Garden. That's it. Also, I thought all these posts came from Donald Trump. He has to approve his own post. Truth Social auto pen. Like, this is what Donald Trump said about Joe Biden, that he was so out of it that everything he did must be null and void because of the auto pen, which Trump has used. But he's so detached from his own presidency that he needs his handlers to make all his deals, which he claims are his, just like he didn't write the art of the deal. And he's like, Kristi Noem, can you please explain habeas corpus to me without anyone knowing? Like, this is what we're seeing from Donald Trump. So when you hear these claims that he's ended all the wars, just remember his own handlers are not letting him take part in this. Donald Trump is not a part of these discussions. Remember when he met with Putin? The reporting that Carolyn Leavitt was stunned, that she was like, saw a ghost after watching that conversation between Trump and Putin. Do you think that might be because Donald Trump, behind closed doors, and in front of closed doors, by the way, with the doors wide open, is deteriorating and world leaders can prey upon that, and so Donald Trump can't be a part of this discussion? Well, that is the case that I made on Piers Morgan's show, a clip that I promised. Piers, again, made the argument that you're going to hear a lot from MAGA, so stick around at the end of this clip because it's important. Donald Trump is so dementia-addled right now, he did a text interview with Jake Tapper. Now, I'm not really a fan of Jake Tapper. I think that's a pretty sad move to do a text interview, but do we really think that Donald Trump is on the other side of that phone? No, it's Stephen Miller, it's Russ Vaught.
Actually,
He's
I do. Yeah, I can tell you how I know it.
Playlist.
I can tell you how I know because I text with Trump regularly, and it is him.
I'm sure.
Just to be clear, Jack, it is him. It is him.
And here's the Donald Trump has to do a text interview. Caitlin, we can't be serious right now. And he's the one attacking.
Jack, calm down. Caitlin Collins from CNN, who's in my old slot at CNN actually, the 9 p.m. hour, gave an interesting interview yesterday, and she was talking about the fact Trump never sleeps. When you're on Air Force One, you can't really sleep properly because he's up all the time wanting to talk to journalists. He gives more airtime to Q&As with the press and the media than any president ever. That's just a fact. Now, you may think he's got dementia, but I would argue the one that looked like he had dementia was the predecessor in the White House who never did Q&As with the press, never did any hostile interviews with anybody because he didn't have the mental acuity to do it. Trump, whatever you think of him, he's out there every day talking for an hour, 2 hours with the media.
There's a big difference, though, between answering a question and responding to a question. And just because Donald Trump's words
What's the difference between the two? It's the same thing.
Well, if you ask Donald, that's not even remotely true. If you ask Donald Trump whether or not he wants to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, and he says, well, I don't really know who that is, and also, have you seen my ballroom? That doesn't give you a real answer. He's responding. He can go on and talk about nonsense for an hour, but that doesn't do anything to give you a real answer, to let you know what this administration is doing.
He makes more news.
It's not about news.
Hang on,
it's not about news. It's about he's the president of the United States. He should answer questions.
He makes more news on a daily basis by answering questions than any other world leader. I mean, he does.
Responding to questions.
Well,
Piers, if you asked me a question and I started ranting about a ballroom that I'm building, and that had nothing to do with the question that you asked me,
well,
I think you as a journalist would feel pretty unfulfilled.
Well, ironically, I just asked you about Katie Porter. You said, I don't want to talk about Katie Porter. Let's talk about the Republicans.
Because I had to respond to what Michael said.
All
right, so Piers is saying that Donald Trump is negotiating a peace deal in the Middle East. Oh, he's up all hours of the night. He's doing such a great job. But he's not negotiating it. That's what we can very clearly see in this video. That's what we saw today, that Donald Trump is not actually taking part in these negotiations, that he needs his handlers to explain even what is happening. Donald Trump is just unaware. He is not clued into anything happening within his administration. He just doesn't understand or care, and we are going to continue to point that out on this show. If you want to support that, as always, you can hit that subscribe button, leave a like on this video. If you stuck around to the end, drop a blue heart in the comments, and if you want to support the show in another way, you can subscribe to my Substack right here. And I hope you enjoyed that clip of me on Piers Morgan. If you did, and you want to see the rest of it, click right here, check it out. Keep on fighting. Don't let them silence you. And until next time, I'll see you soon.